Hey friends, welcome to this week's video. I'm extremely happy because Boston's finally getting sunny. That means that we can get back into earbud reviews and get back onto the field and test these more appropriately, with different settings, and I'm not just stuck inside the entire time. To start off the season of earbuds, we are going to be looking at the Grell TWS/1s or TWS1s, however they're pronounced. But the reason why I wanted to look at this is because of the company, Grell. And if that does sound familiar to you, it's probably because Axel Grell has been in the industry for a very long time as a lead engineer at Sennheiser for like the last 3 decades. So if you own a pair of HD600s, 650s, HD800s, or if you're really ballin' and own one of those Orpheus systems, he made that. So that is the reason why I needed to check out his first introduction to his own company with these True Wireless Earbuds. It is something that took me a little bit of time to get a handle of. However, since I've gotten them, I just haven't had time to properly review them, and there's been a couple different iterations here. So these ones are the standard ones that come through the company. However, they have done a collaboration with Drop, which they're both the same price, but the Drop ones do have a little bit more active fit considerations. I'm not sure if they have tuned those differently, because Drop does tend to have a special tuning when they get their hands on a collaboration, but from what I can tell, they're basically the same outside of the fit. For this one, I'm not going to be going over the Drop versions. This will just be the TWS ones. So let's get into specs and see what I like about them. Grell's done a good job with their packaging using cardboard and an easy open design. Everything fits cohesively and looks well thought out, giving it a nice unboxing experience. The simplicity extends to the earbuds with their understated looks and polish. The TWS ones won't catch any eyes with their aesthetic, but the clean lines and classy typeface look refined and premium. Starting with the case, its metal enclosure has LEDs on the front for battery indication, and they do charge with USB-C and wireless charging. However, I did not see any mention or specifications around quick charging, and based on my test, it doesn't seem like these charge extremely fast in comparison to other earbuds. In fact, I did have some issues with the case retaining charge after a long stint of non-use, so keep that in mind as well. Another goofy thing about the case is that the left and right housings are on opposite sides than you'd expect. Not a huge issue, but annoying enough where I find myself fumbling around when putting these earbuds back into the case. You may also notice some difficulties with the lid closing, depending on the ear tip selection you choose. Moving on to the earbuds, they have a nice set of materials from Gorilla Glass touchpads to sandblasted metal accents. On the internals, they rock a custom 10.1mm dynamic driver that pumps out a 105 decibel rating, so these guys should outpunch most of the competition from a volume perspective. You also get 6 hours per charge, which is on par with the current landscape. In terms of extras, the TWS ones are bare bones and give you just the manuals, charging cables, various ear tips, as well as the earbuds themselves. I do appreciate them giving you multiple foam tip sizes as well. For me, the silicone tips just had fit issues. However, the foams worked like a dream. They had a nice squish and malleability, and to me they improved the ANC and sound overall. So keep in mind that most of my thoughts and feelings throughout this review reflect the foam tips unless otherwise stated. So let's punch in so that you guys can see how this earbud looks. Straight ahead on profile, you'll notice that it does protrude a little bit, but nothing egregious because of the flat control panels that bring some sleekness with the on-head fit. As we look to the side of it, which we'll cut away to here, you'll see that the overall shape follows the nice curvature of the ear, and the stems fit into the notch quite well, leaving it very natural looking and nothing too foreign or alien to the ear. So overall, very nice aesthetics on head. But that also contributes to the fit. As we mentioned before, silicone tips don't really work for me, but they might work for you. But for me, the foam tips never fall out. So from this perspective here, like the natural stuff that I normally do on these reviews, these don't budge a little bit. I didn't feel any slippage at all once those foam tips were in, and it's much appreciated. We'll go more into that a little bit when we get into the more active review part of this, but fit is not a problem, and I think you guys will like how comfortable they feel. They do feel comfortable even over long listening sessions, so I've been able to kill the battery on these guys quite easily without ever having any sort of ear fatigue, which is a nice change to some of the other earbuds that I have. So the security, I appreciate from the Grells. What I will say is that when it comes to some of the controls, though, while they do give you this nice flat feature, they are responsive. There is a little bit of strange configuration that I would say that they put. So they do use, the right side tap for playback, start and pause, and then your sort of playback controls are on the left side, which will have like a little bit of swipes. And I think they did this because they want to separate the swipes of the playback with the swipes of the volume, which are on your right side. However, I would have liked for them to switch that around a little bit. So if I could have my playback control pause with a tap on the right, as well as the change track swipes here, that would be nice, because I know that all my playback is here. With them on kind of different sides, I do miss swipe a lot, because sometimes I want to change track, but then I end up changing volume. So just a little bit of reconfiguration would be nice, and unfortunately we don't get relief in that in the app. It's mostly just there for reference. The left-hand tap is for your controls of your different sound modes. So essentially it'll help you activate transparency mode, it'll help you go into ANC, it'll help you go into NAR mode, and again, we'll go into those more specifically in that section. However, that's kind of just that the configuration is set and cannot be changed. Since we're already on controls and have a view of the app already, I will talk about the Sound ID app. This Sound ID app is not particular to Grell, as they don't have their own standalone app. However, it does interface with the Grell TWS1s, which is good, especially because they need a way to push for more updates, and it's something that has happened twice during my review time with these. So on this dedicated time of me listening in and testing these over the last couple weeks, I have gotten 2 updates. One was around sound, and I believe the latest one is around connectivity issues that we will test to see if they have resolved any issues or we've gotten any performance bumps when we get to the outdoor section of our testing. In terms of what else the app offers besides a guide for your controls and your ability to update your firmware, you do also have the ability to set your custom EQs as well as develop a sound profile. So the way the sound profile works, as we talked about in one of my streams, is that it looks at 4 different sound samples from various different types of sounds and allows you to choose them. It does go through sort of this large, like 5x5 grid that makes you select sounds in different scenarios and see which one you like, and then it will compile a sound profile that should be to your liking in a lot of different scenarios. This is different than some other approaches that are more automated, like the Neurophones or the Neuroloops, which use autoacoustics to sap sound into your ear and understand how your ear is shaped, or something like the Sennheiser or the Jabra controls, where they use tones and different volumes to see how sensitive your ears are and what frequencies your ears respond to the best. So they all are different patterns. However, I do like how they give you actual sound and music samples so that you can choose between them to help build that profile. It's something that I found really effective on the Drop Pandas as well. So I overall like the fact that they're using this to sort of enhance it. We will get into the considerations around that portion of the app later as we talk about the sound samples. But for now, let's move into conferencing and microphones, just because that is something that a lot of people use with True Wireless setups.
So this is an indoor recording of the Grell TWS1s, so that you guys have an understanding of how this sounds indoors with a more controlled environment. I've seen that the tone overall is pretty loud. It's very clear on calls. People hear me enunciate well, although it does have a slightly robotic tinge to it. You can hear this, especially as I add more volume to things, that it has a little bit of digitization to it. It doesn't take away from the overall experience. My clients didn't really harp on me too bad, especially because they could hear me so clearly. And that clarity likely comes from the stem design that these earbuds have. While I don't generally like the extended, sort of footprint of stem aesthetics or stem designs, I generally see that those microphones do perform better from a clarity and volume perspective. I do wish that they kind of had a little bit more natural tones to it. just so that it was a little bit more pleasant for longer listenings, especially with all of us having to be on long calls all the time. I do try to give my audience like the best sort of audio experience that they can have, just so that they can not get distracted by sort of the digitization. But it's not bad. My clients liked it quite a bit. In terms of connectivity perspective, I will say that the range on these seems to be pretty solid. So if you're not being extremely active and you're just walking between rooms, definitely no sort of interruptions that I've experienced from changing rooms, going between like different brick wall rooms. So it's able to pass its signal in pretty well. I've actually had a conversation with my dad and kind of went downstairs 3 flights if you talk about the landing, and to take out the trash, and I was still able to stay relatively connected with him. There were a little bit of hopping around as I got to the very bottom step, but it wasn't super encumbered, and I was able to get connection relatively quickly with a few steps up. So I was really impressed that I was able to not only get the spans of my apartment, but also be able to keep connection even down in terms of an elevation. So I was very impressed with the connectivity. But from that perspective, I do want to make sure that we talk about that connectivity as it extends into the field. So we will be moving to that eventually and talk about how that performs in an open field scenario. However, I do think that we should move on to an outdoor sample so that you guys have an understanding of how this will sound to you when, you know, there's a lot more going on from an ambient perspective. So this is the recording of the Grell TWS1 outdoors. Freaking windy right now, and there's a lot of cars on this busier street. Hopefully you guys can still hear me clearly in my testing. Even outdoors they sound pretty crisp, but this is windier than I was testing earlier, so let me know how this sounds. But if we are done with this one, let's move on to the outdoor testing with the field workout, which I'm super excited about.
Initially working out with these earbuds, I had issues with fit due to the silicone tips. But from failing many times with other headphones, I brought along the foam tips so that my testing wouldn't be cut short. With the foams in, I had absolutely no issue running or jumping with these. They fit in nicely, very snug, and they didn't have much sway to them, so they felt like they were part of my ear. They stuck in securely for the entire 2-hour hot and sunny workout. However, as nice as they felt inside my ear, I was having tremendous issues with connectivity. Any heavy stepping, turning my head, changing levels, or sudden stops, my music would cut out. It wouldn't even be consistent. It would sometimes cut out on both, alternate between each earbud other times. It was extremely aggravating and took me out of my workout. However, with the latest 2.8 update, it seems to have improved the Bluetooth stability. However, it still has some of those connection quirks. Conversely, I noticed an improvement in distance as I was able to get over 55 yards before cutting out completely, which basically puts that at top of class from last year's best earbuds. So from a connectivity perspective, it's kind of a mixed bag. They've definitely made some strides on the communication range, but the connection between the earbuds still seem to be missing some key consistency, which takes away from the experience. Since we're outside anyway, let's go over some of the transparency modes that are available to you with these earbuds. So you have 3 modes with the Grell TWS1s. You get your transparency, your ANC, and your NAR. Brand new one to me, at least. Let's start with transparency. You can get some pretty solid performance here. You can have loud enough ambient noise where you can really hear what's around you and be spatially aware of anything that might be getting in your way. If you're an active commuter, this is going to be extremely important to you, but I will say that it's not the most natural rendering. You'll definitely have a lot of noise come through and you'll be able to understand where everything is, which is very good. As we talked about, the microphones are pretty solid at that. However, they will come in a little bit digitized. It's not the most natural rendering that I've heard. There's definitely better earbuds for that, but from a transparency and awareness mode, you won't have any sort of hindrance there. It's just about, it may not be the best sounding thing that you've heard. When we get to the ANC, this is where I was extremely impressed. I was not expecting them to perform this well, and they did a great job about just zapping out that low end. If you had any sort of long droning noises like an air conditioning unit, car, bus, or anything like that, I barely could hear anything in my commute. And when it got hotter here, I turned on my ANC. My AC. I could not hear that with ANC on, and that was something that was surprising to me because I really expected this to be in the middle range where everybody has issues with that, or it's just very like pretty mediocre. Nothing that would hit that Sony and Bose range, but this seemed to do that. I won't say it's as refined as Sony and Bose in that front, just because of the fact that those have like an extreme configurability on the level of ANC that's available to you, as well as they have like a lot of smart technology in there that makes that so good. However, it's batting up there. And I have to say that just because I was so surprised by this. And again, this could be the fact that I'm using their foam tips and they're just sapping out a little bit more than normal, but I was so impressed by that as I had to point that out. But as we move into NAR, which is noise annoyance reduction, it's a little bit different approach to ANC, which basically takes out the high end. So if you ever use ANC on other headphones, you usually have issues with, high-pitched noises like whistles, horns, like crying babies out of nowhere. Like those will come in because it's not a consistent low drone that the mics can pick up. What NAR is supposed to do is be able to pick up those high frequencies and drown them out really quickly. So I thought this was sort of a gimmick. However, when just using them in a cafe and doing some work, I noticed I was not hearing the normal like clings and clacks and high-pitched squeals from the steamer that I would normally hear. And on the road, horns weren't as apparent. And what really kind of like shocked me was when I was in a cafe and I could not hear my friend Samika. So like, here's an example of that. Say words at me.
Did you just get a cold brew or do you have something else?
I can't hear her at all.
He never listens.
I kind of like this. I can't hear her at all. But she's so close to me. But I still can't hear crap with all of the NAR and ANC on.
Wow. I'm glad you're happy.
I can't hear a single thing. It's great.
I don't like it.
So yeah, NAR, I'm not sure if you can toggle ANC and NAR at the same time. It kind of just goes on ANC on, ANC off, NAR. I don't know if you can stack them. So that's the thing that I'm not certain based off the controls, and there's nothing in the app that'll help me understand if both of them are on at the same time. However, from my hearing, it sounds like I can stack them. So I can get the low end, the high end, I can get the whole frequency range and block out everything to get extreme isolation. It just sounds really good. It's something that you guys have to hear for yourself. So here is some samples that will go through each of the different modes in different scenarios, so you guys get a semblance of how these sound to your ears and if it's blocking out stuff to your liking. As we talk about sound, out of the box, I was really not impressed. I'm not gonna lie. I was feeling like there was just missing a ton of life out of them. They just sounded not like $200 headphones. They did not sound like they had anything special about them. and it really took me a long time to sort of warm up to the original sound signature. There were certain aspects to it, like isolation or like acapellas, that sounded really, really haunting and had a lot of detail. But if you introduced any sort of bass, it would sound muddy. If you introduced like a big band elements, there's just a lot of mush between the instruments. There's not a lot of separation where you could hear certain parts shine amongst the band. There's just a lot of like cacophony of noise that was undefined, which was not great to my ears. And there's just a kind of there's like just a lot of like certain parts of it just missed the vibe. It just sucked in terms of like not being able to represent how the song felt. It did not bring the liveliness out of it. It did not bring the mood to it. It was just very emaciated sounding, and there's a lot that I was hoping for. And the biggest thing that I saw when we were doing this on testing on a live stream, which most of it was through that sort of neutral sound, was like singers like Brendan Urie. They kind of like go low and high on their register through their songs, and when they did quick changes from low to high, you'd hear sort of like a gap, like a very noticeable step that it did not mesh as it kind of hit those different ranges. So I was like, oh, that's like super jarring every time I heard that, and it just did not go away, which was super freaking annoying. So there were just a lot of mess with it, and this is, as I was expecting a lot more, especially because, you know, it's Axel Grell. He's a great engineer, and I was expecting this to sound good out of the box. I was expecting to give up on these, but then obviously they've pushed updates, and to push updates, you need the Sound ID app. This is where I think you absolutely need the Sound ID app, because obviously when on that live stream, I did check the Sound ID app in terms of firmware. I did see how it sounded with the Drop Panda configuration that I had with that app. And even with just that was not tuned specifically for the Grells, sounded much better. So after the live stream, we did go and configure this to my ears. Went over through the hearing preferences, going over the listening profile, basically reconfigured everything so that I could understand how this would sound. So obviously from the hearing preferences, I was able to go to the 4 tracks, as we mentioned before, make sure that all set through. And just like with we talked about before as well, like similar to what Sennheiser and Jabra have, it goes through the different frequency ranges to see how my ears have different sensitivities, so that they can tune that profile to best fit what my ear can receive. So an example of that is, here's my hearing profile. Hopefully that gives you guys an understanding of like what I'm sensitive to and what, you know, I have a harder time picking up, but this is kind of how my headphones are configured. Adding that layer onto it just made things a lot more smoother. Like those gaps that I was hearing, that sort of messiness in the low end and the messiness of with the more complex arrangements went away. It rounded off the sound a lot better, and it did bring a lot more vibe and a lot more energy to these songs that it was lacking out of the box. So it's very interesting, and I like the fact that you can bring in that customized sound so that you can get your best sound, and that you can, you know, even have the ability to customize it. Like, so let's say you go through all this, you still don't like it. You have the ability to go into your custom EQ and build one yourself. The flexibility here is insane, because you can add as many pins as you like. You can change the frequency, you can change the dB, the hertz, you can change everything. You can change the whole shape and configuration of that curve so it fits your sound. Unfortunately, you can't try it with music that you're listening to. You got to kind of just base it off the sound samples they give you, but you can upload any variation. You can save multiple versions and sort of see how they behave with your music after the fact. So I've been showing you this sort of configuration there. It's just insane, the amount of flexibility you have. So if you really know what you're doing and you're a sound engineer or something, you can get your own tuning that's perfect to you. That's just something, you know, I just played around with. I'm not a sound engineer. I'm not an audiophile. I just play with a lot of sound. So I'm going to try to give you guys the best representation of all different versions, stock tuning, my tuning, as well as some random tuning that I chose to sort of fix, you know, just to play around with all the malleability of the sound that's available to us. So here's some sound samples of this. There'll be 3 tracks with 3 different configurations on the EQ. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, but here we go. All right, so when we're talking about recommendations, I'm actually having a really hard time of giving you guys one. On one hand, I was about to punt these out the window on my first go at these just because there's a lot of things missing. These did not seem like $200 earbuds, and I was really disappointed by the sound and the connectivity. However, over time, they did push some updates, and they have made some adjustments, and I did download the sound app with the right configuration, and those livened up the headphones tremendously and really brought a lot of depth and vibe to the sound that was there, not there, and missing tremendously from the out-of-the-box tuning. The connectivity, as we talked about, has improved slightly. However, the quirks aren't completely gone, and I kind of want to give it to them just because it's their first really like run at True Wireless headphones, but it's hard for me because I've seen companies like NAR and other companies like that are newer have the same issues but like respond very quickly. Grell seems to be going down that path of listening to customers and seeing where the biggest gripes are and pushing as fast as they can. However, it does feel like this was a little bit of a rush project because there's just a lot of refinement here that I would expect out of the gate out of a $200 earbud. There's just it's just so jarring that it's almost hard for me to like forget about, because on one hand you really brought the customization of a sound that I really like, and even with all of the automated features, it brings that in naturally where I don't have to think about it too much. I don't have to be a professional and have to change. Like it gives me an option to get a more lively sound out of the headphones that is really commendable and flexible across a range of genres. I don't have to constantly retune this thing like I would on like the Falcon Pros. This is something that will work in a lot of different scenarios, and the tuning that is selected by the application is actually relatively solid. It does bring a lot of depth and separation and things that make it very enjoyable. It's just everything else around it in terms of the technology, the reliability, and things like that just take away from that experience and just interrupts, like literally interrupts your music, like gets in the way of enjoying a song because of the random cuts and the random drops and all that sort of inconsistency. So I'm going to phrase it like this. If you have premium headphones already and you're just looking for like sort of a mid-tier to play around with, and you can be patient and, you know, wait for these to become great, I think this is a great option. It's $200. If you have a premium set already, it's probably like not too bad on your wallet. If these are going to be your only set of headphones, I don't think I can recommend these. If these are going to be your guys that you'll daily drive, I just think that while the sound is great and it does outpunch a lot of things in the $200 range, there's just a lot more from a reliability perspective that you can get. You can get slightly better mics. You can get definitely better reliability on touch controls and connectivity and things like that won't have you pulling your hair out all the time. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that it's just really hard for me to recommend that for you, because you're just going to have to live with those until the growing pains stop and Grell sort of catches up and perfects their first generation. And then if you're, if $200 is a little bit stretched for you, but you're like thinking about stretching your money to get these are not the premium that I would stretch those extra $50, $20, $50, $70 for, just to like sort of splurge on, just because of that reliability again. So if you can be patient and you're willing to go down that path of firmware updates and waiting for it, then I think it's great for you to pick up. However, if you need reliability, these are going to be your daily drivers and all that sort of stuff. Just get something that's a little bit simpler, or wait for a version 2 of these, just because, yeah. For me, I'm personally keeping these just to see how Grell evolves. I do think that they have great intentions with their customers and that they could have a great product on their hand. Between the fit and the sound, it's amazing. If they can figure out the Bluetooth part of it, these might be a great buy in the future, just not right now. But yeah, that was the review. So I'm sorry this one took a little bit longer. They did push some updates, and I didn't want to shortchange you guys on the perspective. Like, I didn't want to give you the older versions and like me miss something. So I wanted this to be all encompassing up to a certain point. 2.8 seems to be like the latest that they pushed with the most updates. So that I felt like was a good containment of this review, just so I could get this to you guys. Sometimes those happen. I have to push out my review. So I hope you guys are okay with the schedule for now. But if you have any questions, definitely put them in the comments, because I've been doing these guys for the last 3 weeks. I have plenty of listening time on them, bunch of perspectives. So you guys can hit me on my social, Instagram, TikTok, everything that I basically have everything. So anything that's good for you to communicate on, I'm good to communicate with you on. So definitely hit up any of my socials. But if you guys like what you saw, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing, doing all the things you normally do on a video that you like and love. And for my OGs, thank you guys for growing this channel and helping me refine my content. And to you newbies, thank you for joining the family. And we're going to get into a lot more earbuds and speakers coming soon. Just waiting for them to come through the mail. Logistics in the world is a little bit crazy, so please be patient, but we're gonna get them as soon as possible. So thank you guys so much for helping with this channel. But as always, appreciate you. Peace.